Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is rejecting calls to drop extradition proceedings against a Chinese tech executive in the hopes that China would free Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. He says bowing to pressure from Beijing would put many more citizens at risk by signaling Canada can be intimidated. Meng Wanzhou was taken into custody over American allegations of violating sanctions on Iran, and her extradition case is now before a British Columbia court. The PM said, quote, randomly arresting Canadians doesn't give you leverage over the government of Canada anywhere in the world. Russian authorities are pulling out all the stops to get people to vote on constitutional amendments that would enable President Vladimir Putin to stay in office until 2036. The nationwide vote begins today and lasts for a week. To encourage turnout amid the coronavirus outbreak, authorities are luring in voters with a chance to win prizes, ranging from gift certificates to cars and apartments. Pakistan's state-run airline announced this morning that it would ground 150 pilots on charges that they obtained their pilot licenses by having others take exams for them. A spokesman for Pakistan International Airlines said the decision comes after a probe into last month's jetliner crash that killed 97 people in the city of Karachi. Without sharing specific details, the spokesman also said that a process to remove the 150 tainted pilots had been initiated. A new study finds 81% of Canadian COVID-19 deaths occurred in long-term care facilities, which is more than double the 31% rate in the U.S. and far higher than the 66% rate in Spain. The Canadian Institute for Health Information says its report provides a damning snapshot of senior care in this country. University of British Columbia clinical professor of geriatric medicine, Dr. Roger Wong, says the numbers point to long-standing systemic problems that include inadequate staffing and resources and inconsistent standards. Export Development Canada's Trade Confidence Index has plunged to an all-time low. The semi-annual survey finds almost 75% of Canadian exporters report that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative impact on their sales. Last week, the EDC forecast that exports will fall 20.3% this year due to the pandemic, before rising 19% next year. Well, after months of slowdowns, Canada's meatpacking plants are finally returning to normal operations. Cargill at High River, Alberta, expects to be at 100% next week, while JBS in nearby Brooks is back to pre-COVID numbers. But Dennis Laycraft from the Canadian Cattlemen's Association says there is still a backlog of up to 130,000 heads stuck at feedlots and ranches. He says the backlog could take months to work through. The mayor of Waterloo, Ontario, southwest of Toronto, says a series of racist flyers distributed throughout the community does not represent the views of those who live there. The flyers, which he described as racist garbage, have been turning up in local mailboxes. They criticize interracial relationships and contain false claims about the intelligence of Black people. Waterloo Regional Police say they're investigating the matter. Alberta is moving to stop convicted sex offenders from being allowed to legally change their names. The province has introduced legislation to make such name changes illegal to help keep communities safe. Alberta is following the lead of Saskatchewan, which already has such a law. Both Alberta and Saskatchewan are now urging other provinces to follow suit. The city of Winnipeg is using noise deterrents to keep homeless people from living under some bridges. Speakers under the bridges blare a combination of multiple beeps in a high-pitched tone. The city says they have been set up in locations that have experienced problems with encampments that included fires. Homeless advocate Al Waib, who was homeless for 26 months at one point, believes that these devices are inhumane. The city says feedback on the devices is being monitored. A first-of-its-kind Indigenous reconciliation position was announced at the University of Victoria. Rai Moran, a member of the Red River Métis and founding director of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation at the University of Manitoba, will be joining the university this fall. His new role as an associate university librarian for reconciliation will involve collecting and showcasing Indigenous history, as well as promoting reconciliation within university departments and courses. Mr. Moran hopes his new role will help showcase Indigenous history and culture to a wider audience. The World Health Organization says the second deadliest Ebola outbreak in history is over. The virus killed almost 3,000 people in eastern Congo over the past 2 years. The region is a conflict zone, and despite the emergence of 2 vaccines, the Ebola response was repeatedly challenged because of armed groups and the people's mistrust of healthcare workers. India's army chief has visited the Himalayan border region with China as two Indian security officials reported that Chinese soldiers have entered Indian-controlled territory, despite ongoing talks between military commanders and diplomats to ease tensions. The Indian army has not commented on the reported incursion. The official said Chinese troops had advanced in the Depsang Plains, also in Ladakh, in violation of border management and jointly agreed patrolling protocols between the countries. Meanwhile, Japan's National Security Council has endorsed plans to cancel the deployment of two costly land-based U.S. missile defense systems aimed at bolstering the country's capability against threats from North Korea. The council made its decision Wednesday, and now the government will need to enter negotiations with the U.S. about what to do with payments already made for the systems. Defense Minister Tara Kono announced that the plans to scrap the systems earlier this month after it was found that the safety of one of the two planned host communities could not be insured without a hardware redesign that would be too time-consuming and costly. Well, after months of near daily briefings on the spread of COVID-19, BC's Dr. Bonnie Henry has become a household name, and local artists have taken to creating pieces with her likeness. Dr. Henry says she, quote, absolutely did not see it coming. It's not the first time Dr. Henry has been the subject of fan attention. In April, a Vancouver-based shoe designer created and named a shoe after her, with proceeds from the popular pre-sale going to food banks BC. Well, that'll do it for today's news update. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.